Welcome, guys. We are the co-pilots, and we're here to show you our covers.
Cool.
All right, so I'm Bert.
My name is Brinton, and we'll talk a little bit about ourselves just to introduce y'all to who we are. So I am a fifth-year student in architecture. Did my undergrad at Texas Tech, where I met Bert, and kind of became best buds there at Tech. He'll talk a little bit more, but we both went through architecture there together. And I'm now at the University of Texas at Austin, finishing my grad program up, so I'm graduating here in spring of 2023. Not sure what the world holds after that. Not sure if I even want to do architecture, but I know I want to do something in the creative realm, and so that's why I'm here right now.
So I'm Bert, as I said earlier, and I also, as Brenton stated, we met at Texas Tech. I'm currently still at Texas Tech as we both finished our bachelor's degree for architecture, but I decided to be hard on myself and get a civil engineering degree as well, so I'm still stuck here for a couple more years. Afterwards, I probably will get my master's in architecture just to further myself in my future. But yeah, so that's kind of my background as well. And so this podcast, what we created or want to create, is something that we both envision about recovering or redesigning album covers for our artists that we really like or just see interested.
Yeah, and so I would like to add that Bert was one of the first people who really got me into music and started appreciating music more. And so that being said, I started to listening. I had my own genre of music that I grew up listening to, and that's what I really liked to listen to, and I was kind of stuck in it. And we all have that iPod Touch back at home somewhere hidden in a box, and that has all of my certain music, and it was three different bands, and they still go hard, but they're not all right now. And so me, I guess, broadening my horizons has made me realize there's even if I don't like a song, I can respect the energy and the effort and how much went into writing that song. And so this podcast for me is about recognizing all of the different types of music that are out there, and there's so many different ways about going about making music and listening to it, and different moods you have when you're listening to music. And so in a way, this is visually representing some of our feelings about what we listen to on a daily basis.
So my background in music is I was kind of a musician when I was young, really cool kid.
You were a band nerd, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was a band nerd. I think it started when I was in 6th grade. I decided to play percussion. Before that, I learned how to play piano and guitar for a bit. But so ever since 6th grade, I just kind of had this connection to music, and I've loved multiple genres of music, from jazz to screamo, I guess, hip hop, pop, oldies. But I would probably say jazz is one of my favorites, if not my favorite. But with percussion, it kind of just made me feel this connection to music itself. I understood different aspects to cues and melodies and beats or tempos, and I just felt connected to songs ever since. And I think a big part of it for me is lyrics. I would say 60% is really important about the lyrics. 40%, if it's a good beat, bad lyrics, I might.
It's rare. Let's be honest. It's rare.
yeah. Hey, there are some songs I would say. No, but if for me, it's just kind of I'm kind of lyric focused. I really think Kendrick Lamar himself. I think he's the greatest lyricist of all time. There's an artist from Chicago named Saba. I love his stuff. And then with jazz music, there's not really a lot of lyrics itself, and to me, the music or the instruments that are played, that's the lyrics to their songs, and so that's why I feel connected to music. And so I guess this whole podcast we're trying to create is more of us trying to be more attached to an artist that we deem favorable with us. And so we might think that their album cover may need some help, but it's just kind of our vision of how we see that album, and I think it helps us get connected to the artist,
Yeah, and I guess the unique thing about mine and Bert's friendship is that we are like opposite ends of the spectrum on practically everything. So like in this instance, yeah, I played the piano for like 5 or 6 years growing up, but if you asked me to play an instrument right now in front of you, could I do it? No, I could not. And so like freaking Bert came to Austin when I moved in to help me move this piano I got as a gift. I'll have to post that at some point. This is worth posting. But he came all the way to help me move this piano into my new apartment here in Austin. And so I like have intentions of picking that back up and getting back into music, but like Bert is our music go-to guy who knows probably 20 times more about music and the technical terms and all of that about what we're actually going to be discussing. So I'm going to rely on him a lot for that, just because he knows. But for me, I think other than that, it's just, I think what I want to do and like highlight is like, I think we're in this period of life right now where there's like such a like acknowledgement of art and like respect for art and what's going on, and like music is this huge aspect of our lives. I can see that through everyone else I talk to, that music is a big part of their lives. And like you look down at your phone, you go through music, you shuffle through your playlist, and you see all of these like cover pieces, and frankly I don't know anything about any of the cover pieces unless it's extremely obvious. And so, like, I don't personally know a famous album cover designer right now. I don't know anything about the art that I see on a daily basis. So I've kind of fallen into this routine of just, like, seeing an image that I don't actually know anything about. And so I think one of my hopes for this as well is to really acknowledge the industry and, I guess, make us realize that there's a lot more that we see every day that has a lot more meaning than we would even know to start with.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that point that the whole music industry just kind of like overshadows the designers who make the albums, or like the designers who do digital art for all music in general. Like you think about music videos, you know, cover art or promotional posters, you know, that to me just kind of goes unnoticed. T-shirts, you know, they become more noticed because people wear them, but you don't really see it a lot. You know, I think one of the bigger ones would be Astroworld, Travis Scott. People like his designs, but just because he's so big, he has that platform, but then you don't know who actually designs that specific shirt.
Yeah.
Where's that recognition?
Yeah, and I think another important point to add is that like even albums have a lot of photos, and I think at one point we're going to come across albums that have photos, and we're going to put a graphic design to the album to like kind of explain what we get from the album as an outsider looking in. And I think that I really don't know if artists have people that design their albums for them, or if they have like how big of a say they have in it actually, or if it's maybe the record label that actually decides that, or if it's like their business partner that decides it, and it's like do they even get to see the image of the album before the cover, like before it even gets released. And so that might be something else we dive into as well, is really getting into how much control artists have over their cover art and where it's created. And that's really important to me, is to really understand how the industry is actually working.
I would feel that the artists do have more control. I know there's this one artist, we talked about this, Logic. Yeah. He's a rapper.
Yeah, beautiful
and
covers.
All his album covers, amazing covers. So if you have a chance, go look at them. But all his covers are designed by one person that he personally like hired to make his albums, and they're all works of art. You can see that they're kind of the same style as well, and then they're amazing. And it just kind of goes off to like other album covers. You know, Kanye West came out with his album cover, and it's just black. Like, was there any design to that one? Childish Gambino came out with the album two summers ago, I think, and that one's just white pretty much. So I think also kind of the industry might just be fading away with designs in a sense.
I'll give the audience a spectrum of our differences, but I'm a big fan of One Republic and The Fray, and gosh, all of these another thing that we completely contradict on is like I'm not a big listener on Kanye West. Like I acknowledge that he's very talented and I do appreciate everything he does, but the music doesn't resonate with me as much as it does with Bert, and that's also really something that's important, is knowing that there's different types of music out there that resonate with different people and having different opinions, which is something we're actually bringing into the podcast, is talking to friends and other people that might have a different take on an album that we pick and select for Redesign. And so I think one of the really important things to also say about this process and what we're going through right now is that just because we're redesigning an album cover doesn't mean that it's bad, or doesn't mean that it's not important or not impactful. We're redesigning it because we were inspired by the music we heard on it, and we wanted to create a rendition of what that meant to us. And so these album covers we're redesigning right now are showing a different take on the album, how it impacted us as individuals, what the feelings we got from it, and just showing our individual interpretations of the music, which is ultimately why I feel artists write music, is to affect their audience. And so this is a direct reaction of what artists' music have done to random people in college studying architecture and engineering and just sitting in their dorm rooms right now in apartments just trying to like do something with what we're listening to. So
Yep. So then on that note, do you want to go into our albums?
I think that would be wise. Yeah, I'm down.
All right.
So, Bert, you want to talk? You want to release the information on what album we picked?
Maybe. It's a possibility. So we did Brenton's favorite artist of all time, GOAT. Probably not, but so we did this. You might have not have heard of him. He's not that well known. Not like he has a billion streams on some songs, But his name is Kygo, and kind of underground, So if you listened to it before us, kind of cool. But so his name is Kygo, and we did his album Cloud 9. So I don't know if you've seen the album Cloud 9, the cover itself, but it's just kind of a white blank canvas with kind of like a blue paint streak across it. Mm-hmm. And then he has his logo above it, and it just says Cloud 9 on the bottom.
Yeah, and so the paint streak has like an ombre effect. I don't know, maybe a gradient's the right word.
Yeah.
But it's like a blue, it's like a dark blue to white color smear in the middle with the paint dripping. And so that was the original album cover that we saw. The album for me, I have had a song on the album, which when we get into our designs, I'll actually say something quite funny about it. But I've had a lot of his songs pretty much since they came out, and like the album was released from 2014 through 2016. A lot of singles were released off of the album itself, but it was recorded a little bit before that. But like most of the songs were released in 2016 when the album made its official release date. And so most of those big songs have been with me for quite a while. Bert, not so much, I don't think.
Honestly, I know like one or two songs from him, even though 700 million streams. Like, how do I not know that? But
yeah, so I think we started off with a lot of digging on this album, and also about Kygo himself. I actually got the idea for this podcast originally when I saw a documentary on Netflix. It was a Kygo documentary called Stole the Show, about Kygo and making his debut as an artist and kind of how he's grown up to be this huge figure pretty much, I wouldn't say overnight, but relatively very quickly.
I remember watching that.
Yeah. So I watched it the first time, and then I made Bert rewatch it after we decided to do this podcast.
It was worth it. Well worth it.
Yeah, it's always super inspirational to me, and I think it's been... My move to Austin actually hasn't been that easy, and I think that seeing inspirational people and seeing other people succeed has been a big factor in me progressing and moving towards living a happier life, is just seeing there's so many positive influences out there. And so for me, Kygo was in a sense that person, especially after watching his documentary. Seeing that people are so young, just came from ACL, and like everyone's so young, and so many artists out there were just like, I was in the field 3 years ago watching artists perform, and now I'm up here, and it's just, it's so inspirational to be surrounded by people that are the same age. I'm 20, I just turned 23, I was going to say 22, just turned 23 a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm 42.
42, oof. Yeah, well, you look great.
Thanks, man.
But, yeah, so, I think, go for it, bro.
I was going to say, what would you say is your favorite song from the album at first?
My favorite song is Serious on the album. And so it's actually quite funny when I show you my redesign. I used a little bit of each song on the album, and Serious was the only song I couldn't find what I needed for. So it ironically got a little bit excluded from the drawing just because I think it's probably one of the most underplayed songs on the album, and like listening to an album, and I think that's important, is like I don't know how many people actually sit there and listen through a whole album these days. Like how many artists would you genuinely say you download a whole album for and listen to it all the way through?
Hey, no, you should not ask me that question. You know I would do that.
I know you do.
Kanye, Childish Gambino, Saba, Smino, Snarky Puppy. I can name a list if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So I just feel like we all have, like, these songs go platinum. These songs get a lot of attention, and there's like, you look in Apple Music. Bert uses Spotify, so there's another difference. But you look on Apple Music, and like there's stars next to certain songs. And it honestly hurts me sometimes when I go to a song, like I really like that song, and I go to the album, and it's one of the starred songs, and I'm like, there's probably so much other potential hidden in this album that I don't even know, and I really like this one song. And so like even Foster the People for me, like I had an album off them that I had a song that I liked, then I found another song that I liked that was recommended. And that went on for a few years, and I was finally just like, why don't I have the whole album? Like, why haven't I listened to that? And so I sat down and forcibly played a lot of their songs in the car. Bert's Pilot. Maybe we should talk about why
Honda Pilot.
The Honda Pilot. Oof. Give us the rundown.
So I have a 2011 Honda Pilot, and that thing
Yes, you do.
is my baby. Glorious, behold, she's a mammoth, you know. She demolishes the streets. Dirt, snow, mud, water. She's a submarine.
Yeah.
She's
it's
an
true.
airplane.
I can attest to this. Yes, yes, she can.
But yeah,
so
I think
the podcast actually was named. We were coming up with a bunch of names, and like the Pilot, I think his Honda Pilot is probably, well, obviously where he shares a lot of his music, where he grew up as a person, and like not grew up as a person, but like started to show his true personalities to me in a way. Just by watching him listen to his favorite music at full volume in a Honda Pilot going 2 miles above the speed limit, but acting like he's speeding down the highway like some crazy person who just robbed a bank. But
all right, so since you showed us your favorite song and you were kind of going off your album, you want to show us your album cover?
Yeah, go ahead, Bert. So, this is my album cover. Ooh.
This is pretty sick.
Thanks, man. So, I think Bert and I, the other thing that we started with this podcast is that neither of us have seen these prior to this podcast. So I had no idea what he was creating, and he had no idea what I was creating. So this is our first time seeing the final depictions.
Yeah.
So, Bert, what are your initial thoughts? Let's hear what you think this is.
You know, you kind of said, you had a statement that you kind of made this album within every song, and I can kind of see that with the color patterns, and it's really generally nice. It's pleasing.
Okay.
It's crisp. What I'm curious about is the difference between solid and voided circles.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, that really interests, that pulls me in. Like, why are they void? Why are they solid? But I definitely like the patterns, and the color just seems very fitting for the album itself. Mm-hmm. It kind of seems like, I don't know, if you vaguely squint your eyes, it's like an ocean, you know?
You know, and I think that's what Kygo's music feels like sometimes. But that's cool. Is there anything? Gosh. Yeah, I finished this up last night, and I never squinted my eyes, and I feel like that's something we were taught in school to see, like, something graphically.
Did you turn it upside down?
Turn upside down, step back and squint your eyes, you get like a different reading of things that is presented to you.
Hold on. So there's this option, you know, on the photo, you can rotate it. Hold on. If you do it clockwise, 90 degrees, it's a whole different story.
Okay, let me try.
Come on, Brinton.
You know, I'm not the best with technology, so we're going to rotate my head.
Rotate your head? No, I think...
It is interesting. I feel like, yeah, it reads differently, but I feel like it might, like, still say the same thing in a way. Is your interpretation different?
No. I mean, not really, but I can see what you're saying.
Okay. Cool. Well, I guess I'll dive into what I did. And so, essentially, I went and researched, obviously I listened to this album probably. Every time I was working on this, I had the album playing in the background. Like, I just didn't know nothing else felt right. Like, Netflix on while I was doing this? No. And, like, listening to other music? No. And so, what I did was I went and pulled the sheet music from each song on the album. And I pulled, it's not the chorus, I pulled a line that was interesting to me. And it goes back to watching that documentary with Kygo. And this is something I definitely want to discuss. But there was a moment in the documentary when they asked him how he felt about basically creating this new genre of music called tropical house. And seeing his reaction, obviously facial reactions, like words can say one thing, but your actions say what you really mean. And seeing Kygo's initial reaction to that statement made me think that he might not like that he was actually like this creator of a genre, that he didn't like being categorized as something. And to me, just thinking about how it would affect me, it's like you're categorizing and putting this artist who laid his heart out and all of his effort and time and energy and life skills into something just to be put into a category. And so in a way, I felt like I saw Kygo's like 1 second or 2 second quick reaction that people have to something initially, and then they alter it because of what they feel like they need to do. And I just felt like Kygo might not like that he's been generalized as part of this category. And to me, that's why I wanted to create this album the way I did. And so I pulled the sheet music. Kygo, the first song on the album, Intro, is a very stark contrast from all of the other songs on the album, just because it's showcasing Kygo playing his piano like in his world and what he does and what he's super talented at. And so that's his instrument. That's his voice in a way as an artist, is the piano. Like, he doesn't sing in the songs, he brings other people on, which is also something that inspired the colors on this album. But just seeing him, that initial reaction is what made me want to do him some justice in a way that maybe he feels like he can't do himself. And so I pulled a line of music off of each song, and so these solids and voids, these are essentially abstracted music notes. And so the solids are the solid music notes, and the voids are the, I don't know what the technical term is for, but the notes that have the empty part in the middle.
Like the circle?
Yeah.
That's a whole note.
There you go. Okay. So I essentially just abstracted by overlaying these solids and voids of circles on the music, like on the sheet music itself, and then supercompose them all together in one diagram where they're overlapping each other. And so ironically, my favorite song, Sirius, was not one that I could find sheet music on. So there's 14 songs on the album. This is 13 of those songs in chronological order, being represented from top to bottom as they overlap. And as you listen to the album, that's one of the things that's great about Kygo, is you listen to an album and it just has a flow. Yes, it's all related, but there's a different story, and part of it is that he brings on a different person for each song to sing. And so that being said, that's why I chose different colors for each song, was to represent those different voices that he brings on. Like John Legend was on this album, but then he also brings on a lot smaller artists that don't have as big of a following. But in this depiction, all of their voices are equal. The album is a collective, and as a whole, this is representing the album to me. And it's also, really importantly, showcasing Kygo's true voice, and that is his skills with the piano. And so how do you better represent that than with the sheet music that he composed himself?
You know what this kind of reminds me of?
What?
You ever see those like how-to YouTube videos when you want to learn a song, and there's this guy playing the piano, and then right above his fingers on the piano, it's like this digital video of like the lines going through when you hit the piano.
Yeah, like a Guitar Hero kind of thing.
Yeah. Like that kind of reminds me of this. I think it's pretty cool.
That's actually where I pulled some of the sheet music off of, was videos that were teaching how to learn songs.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, literally that's where it was pulled from. So
I think it's a really, really pleasing just album. It feels like you feel like you can read the note or read the song because of how you said like everything is based off the sheet music, so it's like that's what the song is, you know.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Cool.
So I guess it's time to
What
show
any
mine.
negative? Let's hear some negative comments on it. Do you have anything you don't like about it?
I think negative comment would be kind of the color coordination.
Okay.
There's some, I don't know, there's some like lime green, I think it's like a mustard yellow or maybe a brighter yellow. I feel since Kygo is a tropical house person, you know, I feel like there's warmth. And that's kind of how I went with my album cover, you know, warmth in a sense. But that's really the only thing negative about it. It's really pleasing to look at. It's so simple and clean. And it's really just good. Just some color coordination maybe could have been a little better, but other than that,
it's
I think
hard, bro. The background color on it, I messed with like 5 like different yellows and then like 10 different blues, and it was so hard to get like the circles to just show up on anything other than like a really dark color. And looking at Kygo's other albums, covers were like they're all very up, like they give you like that tropical house vibe that we've grown to know as a genre. And so I think part of why I did the darker color was just to like really showcase that, like to make those circles pop in a way.
I had nothing against the background. Like it works.
No, it's just like it's still hard. Yeah, it's so hard to do graphic things. Like there's so much respect for freaking album cover designers right now.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, just the digital realm itself.
Just to like have the confidence to release something, knowing that like millions of people are gonna see it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So go for it, Bert. Let's see yours.
Well, this is my album cover, right? So with my idea for the album cover, I kind of went for vibes. It's kind of just because Kygo is tropical house, and for me, tropical house just reminds you like, you know, an island on the beach, or just kind of reminds me of like Venice, you know, something that you just go to the beach and just have a good warm day. And so with this album cover, I kind of just in my imagination of digital creation, kind of rhymed. So I kind of had this idea that I was at the beach, like close to a dock. Like this dock is the pathway to like an undiscovered island in the middle of the ocean. I don't know if you can tell, but like the sand is like the different lines with different colors at the bottom, and then there's like a beach ball to the left, and you have the water, and then you have like kind of the sunset in the back. And so I kind of highlighted the dock as just importance to like the forward movement, or like trying to discover what else tropical is out there, you know?
Let's see.
So yeah, that's pretty much kind of what I went for.
Okay. Yeah, I really, when I initially saw this, I was reading the sand as the water, and I think it's just because of it's like, but my mind wanted to read the blue as the water, but then after you explained it, I can see, I had to reframe how I was viewing it, but I think it's super, not a negative way, it's really interesting to have like those multiple readings of things.
I kind of did that because I don't know if you remember, we had a class. It was called Creative Process. Okay. I think
we weren't in we weren't in the same class, but
yeah. But so with my professor, she made us do a map. Like it can be any style of map, and so I chose the city of Prague. But what I did for it was I kind of went to the idea of topology. And so it was a big paper, probably 24 by, I don't know, 36. I don't know, it wasn't that big, maybe smaller. But, and so it took me the whole weekend, but I kind of traced the topology line by line. The lines are probably less than a centimeter close to each other. So I kind of wanted to just, like, you know, like kind of like a figure topology type line, but in a perspective way. And so I kind of, that's always kind of resonated with me in drawings itself. You know, I really enjoyed doing that at that time. And so with this, I was trying to envision how can I do the sand without it being bland and just kind of, you know, sand. And so I kind of I did it this way, as it kind of reminds me, when you look at sand, you can see some of the patterns that are like wave, because the sand is not just flat.
Yeah, no.
You go to a sand dune or something, you definitely see all the waves with it, and so I kind of try to go like that, and then keep the different colors. The closer is just kind of like more radiant, and the further, less radiant is. Maybe I could have done more color-wise, but
no, I think the colors are very
kind of
reflective of the vibe you get when you listen to Kygo, and I think what time would you normally listen to Kygo when you're like listening to him?
Sunset time,
Yeah.
Because I just want to feel warm. If it's closer to like 1 or 2 o'clock, the sun is kind of straight at you, and you might be at the beach at that time or something, but I feel like that sort of vibe is a lot different than when sunset. Sunset, I feel it can go for everybody. It might not, but sunset to me is like warmth. You feel at peace, and you just feel calm. Because the sunset anywhere, it can be amazing. Here in Lubbock, the sunset and sunrise, you should know that it's amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the...
Because Lubbock is really flat, but the one thing amazing about Lubbock is the sunsets and the sunrise. It's always amazing.
It is. That's one of the things that I didn't realize was so pretty about that city when I was there. It's crazy because you come to Austin, even in Lubbock, Texas, you could see the... For those of you who don't know, Lubbock is where Texas Tech is located. It's where we were at college. And so there you can also be in a city and you still see all of the stars up in the sky. Whereas here in Austin, you don't see any of that just because of the amount of light that's produced by the city. But that's kind of besides the point. But I really like what you did. Why did you do the waving of the whole image?
So that, I didn't want it to be square. I kind of wanted everything to be congruent, I was thinking about just having the whole image itself, just that center image, but I wanted to just kind of feel everything is just congruent. And so if it was just a square within this canvas, I wouldn't feel that it gives off that much warmth. When I think of warmth, it's like when you're driving a car at long distance, you see the waves you see the heat waves coming off the cement.
That is a really tricky,
the asphalt.
That is a really tricky situation to capture visually.
But do you see, like in the distance, you see like the invisible heat waves that are rising from the asphalt itself? And so the reason I made it wavy was because it kind of reminded me of that, just a warmth heat. You think of like LA, I kind of created this idea off of like LA sunset.
Okay.
That beach LA, and then let's say somebody's just recording on the street, just on the sunset, they have a straight path toward the sunset, and it's on, like, they're really close to the asphalt and with their camera, and then in the distance you just get all those heat waves within the sun. That's how I feel with this. It's just like a warmth.
I think you actually captured that essence of that like situation very well, which is not like ever something I thought. I just never, like, you always see the heat, and you're in the middle of Texas summer when you start seeing that. You go up to your car and you just see, like, your car is like surrounded by this bubble of like edited visual air that makes no sense, but you just know that it's going to be a scorcher when you sit down in that car. But in a good way, I think I enjoy that almost to an extent. For like the first 5 seconds you get in a car and you like feel the like amount of heat that hits you. For me, I guess it just like gives me a sense of home in a way, because it's like how you grew up, and it's like you either hate a situation or you learn to love it. And so whenever that happens, like, you'll start sweating after 5 seconds, but like that initial 5 seconds is just like you just sit there and you're like, yep, this is where I live. But
there's always a too much heat, in the middle of the summer. That might be a little too much, but let's say spring or fall, the degrees, 60 degrees in your car is just like, you go to your car and your car's hot. That's always perfect.
Yeah.
But what are the negatives to this?
Negatives? Do I see anything? I really don't know how I feel about the shadow that you put in.
On the all of it, or
I like the shadow to the left of the bridge. I almost feel like it's too hard-lined.
gotcha.
Just because, like, obviously I can see that one on the left is at, like, a different opacity. And so you can kind of see something through, and maybe that's just because it's on, like, a white. I almost feel like the shadow is, like, restricting that whole essence of, like, the heat wave. Like, I'm not sure how you edited this image to make it do what you did. But I feel like it's, like, the whole thing is giving off a sense of, like, happiness and, like, going off to paradise and, like, you're on the beach kind of vibes, and, like, it's time to, like, sit back and relax. And, like, these shadows are, like, very stark and sharp, and it's just, like, a little bit of a contradiction. But at the same time, it also does give you a, like, I'm seeing without it, like, I'm gonna put my thumb up to it. Like, without it, it would be kind of difficult to understand what it is. Like, at first, I didn't realize that it was a pier that you walk over. And so I do understand why it's there.
Maybe just the shadow contrast was too
I think
much,
it's just, like, too like, too pungent. But
I agree with you on that.
But it
Definitely.
does
I was
it
just
does
trying to
show
match.
I mean, it does give you some borders that you wouldn't get on those beams popping up out of the pier. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, on the left side you can see like there's not a lot of border, but on the right side that's when
Yeah.
the shadows come into play. But I can agree with you that maybe the shadows on the pier is a little too much. But I think overall, my first idea with this actually, I was trying to do a 3D model of like an island surrounded by water and just like two palm trees, you know, a beach chair and then some Coke cans and then like a DJ booth, and then you wouldn't see the person because like the person would be out swimming. But like I was just trying to capture that, but it didn't really work out well within the program and everything else. So I just kind of, you know, let's make it a different style. So I just wanted to capture more warmth rather than situation.
Well,
Yeah, because tropical house, you know, it's like warmth.
it is.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, it does give you a sense of, like, it's hard to listen to when it's 30 degrees outside on the way to school. I tried that I tried that last winter, and it was hard, but no, I definitely think that the music is giving a sense of, like, that's another great thing about music, is it, like, it gives you a sense of feeling, and that's why we listen to it, is because it makes you feel something. And so, yeah, that could make you feel something emotionally, but that could also make you feel something, like, experientially, like, physically. And so I was watching, I don't even know what I was watching, but there was a piece of advice given to one of the people on the show, that it was to, like, close your eyes and envision that you're in the middle of an igloo, because they were complaining that the AC was out. And so in that moment of, like, putting yourself in an environment and putting yourself in that place mentally, you create, like, an adverse or, like, a direct relationship to what you would feel physically during that thought process. And so, like, for me, music, and especially Kygo's music, and as shown through your album cover here, is showing that happening. So that's really sick.
Sweet. Thanks,
Yeah.
man. I don't really have nothing else to say for it. I just warmth is what I have.
That's good.
Warmth.
Well, we have officially finished our first, I would say, episode.
First episode.
Anything you want to leave the
the
people with, Bert? Anything to keep them?
Just want to say thank you for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can always contact me and Brinton.
I said, reach out to me, though. No,
but definitely it's been a joy. Took a lot longer than expected, but definitely going to get jump started for the second podcast. Be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for that.
I just wanted to say to all of you guys that have listened through it entirely, that this, like, making, for us, the creative world, and, like, we do things in the creative world right now with architecture, and that's what we went to school for. And a lot of the jobs and things that we've seen, there's not jobs for this that are out there that you apply for. They're not all over the place. And so this is our way to escape the confines of what the possible world to come is for us. And so I just wanted to say thank you to like all of our friends, my family members that are supporting me and like supporting the ideas, even though it's taken longer than we thought it would. The support means a lot, and it's not doing anything that you're not required to do is never easy. So it just means a lot that y'all are supporting us. So
thank you a lot.
So,
yeah, be on the lookout for the second podcast.
Yeah, it'll be coming soon, but we'll keep y'all posted on the Instagram, and I think we're gonna post the videos on YouTube. And now that we have it recorded, I think there's a lot of momentum to get this going. So we will see you guys next time.
See you next time.